speaker from the Centre think tank, the director, Torrin Wilkins.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much for that lovely welcome. So today, I want to do something a little different. Because when I was first asked to do this by the Excluded Unity Alliance, the conversation we had was about how do we get people to actually understand the problem. You see, because we've had Twitter bombs, we've had videos, we've had TV appearances, newspapers, all of it, and yet nothing. Government has not done a thing, hasn't lifted a finger. So the question is, what do? How do we get this message across? And I realised how at the last rally that we did. If any of you have been to London recently, or you were at that last rally, there is a COVID memorial wall that runs 1/3 of a mile down through London. If you go there, you see that, yeah, the pandemic has been awful. We hear every single day about figures like 150,000 people who've died. But you don't understand how awful it is until you walk down that wall. Because when you walk down that wall, you see people's names, you realise that those people who've died, they are grandparents, they are parents, and suddenly it hits home that that number is not just a number anymore. So our figures, we predict that about 6 million people have been excluded. Now, if you look at that and you were to make the same kind of wall, it would be 13 miles in length. Just imagine a trip down that wall, all the way down, looking at each and every heart with people's names on them, and realising the numbers and the scale. Because that's what we're dealing with here. Is not something small, it is not just a headline figure. It is an enormous number of people, each with their own individual stories. Another example was, obviously, we're here in Liverpool today. It's 12 times the size of Liverpool. 12 times everyone you walk past today, everyone who lives here, it is 12 times. The other one is Wales. Now, I spent a few years in Wales and realised it is an enormous country. And yet it doesn't even come close. Scotland. Well, in Scotland, 5.5 million people, still not quite there. Even some European countries like Cyprus, nowhere close. And that really hits home that actually 6 million is an enormous number, but as I said, it doesn't get past the fact that there are so many people and so many individual stories. And in some ways through that pandemic, I've been lucky enough to speak to those people. I've spoken to about 100 people who have been excluded. And in those stories, you hear stories about their mental health, suffering because they haven't got any money. The fact that they are drowning in debt, that they simply cannot pay their way, that they've fallen through universal credit and aren't able to support themselves, and in a lot of cases, they are just struggling to put food on the table day by day. And that really hits home because you suddenly realise that each of those people, each of them have their own story, they've gone through something different. And I think really it was a real sign of how bad things had been. And then there was another thing I thought going down that wall. Because I've spoken to a lot of people who have been forced to go into work. They had the shield they should have been shielding, and yet they didn't have a choice because they didn't have the money to support themselves. They didn't get self-employed grants, they didn't get furlough, so they had to go into work. And that was the one number I didn't want to know, was the number of people who had to go into work, and yet they caught the virus because they shouldn't have been there. That, for me, really shows that there is a lot of things you can say about the government at the moment, but doing that, allowing that to happen, is complete neglect. And then, of course, you have those 25 people who sadly took their own lives because of this. That really shows the scale of this, all the way from that 6 million people, all the way down to those 25. And I think that, for me, was really the moment when I started to realise the absolute scale of this crisis. And of course, we've had so many plans put forward now. In Northern Ireland, they have working plans, same as in Wales. They have plans that are working in place, including more people, and the government has done nothing about it. You had TICS, you had the Directors' Income Support Scheme by Rebecca Seeley-Harris. Nothing. The government spoke but did absolutely nothing. We came up with plans, dozens of plans, that we include millions of people in these schemes, and the government again did nothing. They have sat by and just let it all happen. And in some ways that's where I think there's another perspective on it, which is about the economic argument. Because at the end of the day, this will damage the economy. It's going to damage the economy, it's going to hit tax revenue, and it's going to hit public services. If we do it now, I think we can see it more like an investment. We can see it as an investment in the economy, a stimulus package. And that will hit on, that will increase tax revenue. And if you increase tax revenue, you can spend more on things like schools, doctors, nurses. And you do that, and eventually it gets back to the economy. You have better educated, healthier, happier workers. It is a simple loop. It is not just one action. It is not just about helping those people. It is also about hard economics. So there is a very simple reason for doing this. So really, I think it is about those two things. It is about helping people, but it is also about economics. So I'm glad we're doing this. I'm glad we're going up and down the country, trying to push for this, trying to get people included, as many as we can. Because of those two things, because of the fact that this government has left them behind. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Torrin.